Well, good morning. The time being 9 a.m. in Queensland. I declare open the general meeting of the Gladstone Regional Council for Tuesday, the 16th of December 2025. I call for apologies. I don't see any apologies this morning. So I'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is messages of condolence. And councillors, I'd like to pass the messages of condolence to the families and the friends of the victims of the Bondi massacre. I am, as National President of the Australian Local Government Association, I've written to Mayor Will Namesh, who is the Mayor of Waverley Council, where the terrible incident occurred just recently, and obviously as National President I've written to him to send our sincere condolences on behalf of the local government family across Australia, but also as Mayor of Gladstone on behalf of our community of the terrible tragedy that took place. And massacre, to be fair, of what took place on Bondi Beach. And we send our prayers to the families and the friends of the victims and hope that there's no more loss of life of the casualties that are still in the hospitals. Are there any further messages of condolence, councillors? No further messages of condolence. I'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is the prior notifications of conflicts of interest.
There's no prior notifications.
Thank you. Following that, I'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is the Mayor's statement on current issues. And I want to start by mentioning our welcome to the Gladstone region, our Babies Edition, which was held on Wednesday, the 10th of December at the Phillip Street's Community Families Precinct, and thank the team at Phillip Street, Kylie and Brian, all involved in organising that amazing event. For all the newborns in the Gladstone region. I'm excited the next one is already locked in. There were so many other activities, many at school, awards nights and ceremonies, and of course graduations and lots of Christmas events happening as well, with the Boyne Island annual Christmas tree extravaganza, the Santos GL&G Mayor's Carols, Ulysses Toy Run, community carols in Agnes Water as well, and there was just lots of festive events happening. But of course, it's not too long now to Christmas, and then the next big event for us coming up will be, of course, the New Year's Eve party at the GPC Marina Stage. Fireworks at 8 p.m. and again at midnight. Opens at 5 p.m. on the 31st of December, and it's a free event. And then, of course, our Australia Day and Citizenship Ceremony will take place on the Australia Day Awards. Our Citizenship Ceremony will take place on January the 25th, followed by our Australia Day Family Fun Day on Australia Day from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. At Millennium Esplanade. And, of course, there'll be other events happening right across the region as well. Thank you, councillors. That's the Mayor's statement on current issues. I'll move to the next item on the agenda, which will be the confirmation of the minutes, G 2.1, for the general meeting for the 2nd of December. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Churchill and Councillor Patrick. All in favour? That motion is carried. I will now no deputations this morning, so it's easy for the Deputy Mayor to chair. But before I hand over to the Deputy Mayor, I will be jumping out of the meeting shortly. I'm attending the Energy and Climate Change Ministerial Council on behalf of the Australian Local Government Association. So I'll jump out of the council meeting soon, and I'll try and get back before the meeting closes. But if I don't, I would like to take the opportunity to thank our entire council staff, Lisa and the senior executive team and all councillors for an amazing year. And I wish everyone, not just our staff and our volunteers and councillors, but everyone listening online and right across the Gladstone region, a very Merry Christmas. And let's hope for a more caring 2026 and see no more events like what we've seen in Bondi ever again in Australia. Over to you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Did I push the right button? Yeah, I did. Thanks, Rachel. The next item in our agenda is officers' reports, and we go straight to G4.1, Saiki Advisory Committee 2025 Annual Report, and we welcome Kylie and Jacqueline. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Good morning, councillors. I'm here with Jacqueline Iwasaka. Jacqueline is here with me this morning in her capacity as President of the Saiki Advisory Committee. We are very proud to present the annual report and also the endorsement of a new committee for 2026 this morning. We also have a lot of our members of our Saiki Advisory Committee in the gallery today, and I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you. This is a volunteer advisory committee, and what they bring to the table is really important and very valued, so thank you so much. As I said, there's three components of our report this morning. The first is to endorse the 2025 annual report, and I'll hand over to Jacqueline to do that in just a second. The second request is to endorse the 2026 committee, which comprises of 13 members, which includes 9 returning members, which is phenomenal, and 4 new members. And then finally, we request that Council consider endorsing the Community Partnerships team to undertake a feasibility assessment of a council-managed student exchange program with Saiki. By way of background, there was a student exchange prior to COVID. However, this has not recommenced, unfortunately. Several reasons for that. There's a combination of organisational capacity constraints from schools and council, a limited response and reduced capacity from Saiki, and a few other logistical barriers. So the feasibility would explore the conditions in further detail and come back to council with that report and a recommendation. So I'd love to hand over to Jacqueline now to talk through our annual report for 2025. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you. So the full report is available in the attachments, but I've just pulled out a couple of the highlights and some of the strategic direction that the committee took this year. So the committee focused on 3 things this year. The first one was clearly communicating the benefits of our sister city relationship internally and also to the wider community. The second was exploring new opportunities for practical, tangible outcomes from the relationship. And the third was deepening the relationship with the Saiki City office through online meetings, sharing photographs and stories, and beginning the planning for the 30th anniversary celebrations next year. So some of the highlights from the year included that the committee promoted the benefits of the friendship by hosting stalls at EcoFest, Luminous and the Multicultural Festival. The committee also assisted with the naming of the new bonsai house, Yujo House. The Japanese word yujo translates to friendship in English and is often used to describe the bonds of trust, camaraderie, and affectionate friendship between people. The committee also assisted the reaching out to the Mayor of Saiki to name one of the rooms within the bonsai house as well. So Miraiba was named by the Mayor of Saiki. Recognising the ongoing community interest in student exchange opportunities, the committee conducted some preliminary research in potential alternative models. As a result of this, the committee are proposing that council investigates the feasibility of establishing a council-managed student exchange program. Other opportunities that the committee explored included a local government officer exchange, as well as tourism, business and sporting opportunities. The committee also worked to strengthen our relationship with the Saiki City office through regular communication and facilitating a meeting between Mayor Tomitaka and Mayor Burnett. So in 2026, the Gladstone region will celebrate the 30th anniversary of the sister city relationship and will welcome the Mayor of Saiki City, Mayor Tomitaka. This will be the first mayoral visit since 2019, and the committee are really looking forward to sharing this celebration with the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Jacqueline. If you could just indulge me for a second, I'd just love to read out the proposed membership for the advisory committee. I think it's really important to recognise these amazing volunteers. So the returning president is Jacqueline Iwasaka, Chris Moore as vice president, Rubina Cupid, Bev Fellows, Maureen Mason, Yukiko Moore, Peter O'Dwyer, Mayumi Ray, Gary Scanlon. They are all returning members, and our new members, Zane West, Stephen Henderson, Lean Jeffries and Derek Wu. I'd invite any questions councillors may have. Thank you.
Councillor Holzheimer.
Morning. Thank you for that. I was just curious about option 1. Does the exploration of that model, is that simply to just do a council-led program, or would it actually investigate a hybrid type of model as well, that we are working alongside the schools or everybody else, so we don't pick this up solely ourselves to manage and to facilitate?
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely a possibility to look at alternative models while you're also doing that initial research. I think the committee has reached the point where we've done some of the preliminary research and we feel now that it's time to kind of hand that over to council to then take it in the direction that they would like to see it go.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Churchill?
No, congratulations, well done. I suppose having been on the committee for many years myself, it's pleasing to see it continues to grow in an age where volunteers are difficult to find, and it's pleasing to see that the volunteer numbers have grown. So no, I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation and look forward to that report that comes back in relation to whatever we can do to Gladstoneise or Gladstone regionalise the model for the student exchange, because many would know it was a successful program, but pre-COVID, as you indicated. But times are changing too. Young ones are changing, so it could be a generational opportunity to see what model could work best for our region. But no, I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation, and congratulations to everybody involved.
Councillor McClintock, you want a second or you want to speak?
Both. Let's do both.
Sorry.
Either or. Thank you. Yeah, happy to second that. But thank you to Jacqueline and the committee members I know who could make it. Some are actually doing real jobs and all those sorts of things. It is a group made up of people who are very active, and it's amazing the things that have been done across this year. I think a little bit of context and a little bit of, probably if I could add something to the council side of things. I mean, myself and Councillor Patrick have had the privilege of being on this committee all year long and hearing a lot of that background conversation. I think some of the challenges, or one of the major challenges that we saw was the move to things like homeschooling and smaller schooling opportunities, which meant that a lot of our community missed out on those previous opportunities, even if we were to reinstate the way it was done prior. So this isn't, I think, just about desperately trying to make it work. I think this is actually a way we can make it better and make it more effective and more influential in our community, so that everybody's got access to it. I'm really looking forward, hopefully, to a chance to explore what that could look like and how we could help that relationship happen. But I just also wanted to quickly reflect on the different aspects, I guess, or dynamics of that committee as well. And there's people within there that are very economically driven. There's people that are very arts driven. People are very community driven. And it's a real privilege to sit in that room and hear all the different ways that this sister city relationship does have an influence on people and how people see that. So looking forward to that as the next year continues. I know there's some sort of seeds being planted and some opportunities happening there. And obviously 30th anniversary, lots of planning to be done and already done. Thank you, Jacqueline and team who've been busy paddling like mad to get some things across the line and to make sure that that goes smoothly when that happens in the coming year. But thank you very much, and congratulations to the entire committee. Thank you.
Councillor Patrick, do you want to talk? Or?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Congratulations. Also, welcome to one of our new members, hopefully, that will get endorsed today. And thank you to some returning members who are in the gallery this morning as well. So, as Councillor McClintock said, it is a great privilege for us to work alongside really passionate volunteers within this space. We talk about connection. This is a perfect example of international connection and very vital connections, either business, culturally, an array of things. So, I'm looking forward to 2026. It's going to be a very exciting period within this committee and for our community in celebrating the 30th anniversary of that friendship agreement. So, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron, do you want to answer? Or, sorry.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, it was absolutely remiss of me not to thank Councillor Patrick and Councillor McClintock
Okay,
for
great.
all of their service and
Yeah, that's okay.
support through the committee. I really do appreciate that, so thank you.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes, just confirming, Councillor Churchill, we are adopting option number 1.
Yeah, the officer's recommendation.
Well, it says recommendations, which means all
which
3.
effectively
So,
means option number 3 means that there'll be a report come back
Yeah.
at some subsequent time, and I'm not necessarily indicating any specific timeline because you'll obviously, but
just confirming option 1, that's all.
yeah.
It's
And then
actually
obviously-
option-
And then obviously, depending on, then obviously, wait, I'll turn that on. And then obviously, councillor Cameron, whatever comes out of that, depending on which way it goes,
Yep.
it'll be part of a budget cycle, I would imagine, for the future.
Understood?
Yeah, so, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
A good question, thank you.
And I think that you brought something back into the conversation, so a budget item. And I'm interested in understanding the possibilities, but I also very worry about the risks, about the resourcing, about whether this is a fit for a local government, as it is for our local government. This is, I believe, us being an enabler, and I'm sure you will come up with some options that will allow us to do that, and at the same time to have buy-in from other people that have more interest in school exchanges. It is, yes. So I can see risk all over. So, and I also see resourcing and restraints on our budget. So, just to keep it real, I just wanted to mention that. Thank you. Is there any questions online, Matt? Mr. Mayor, Councillor Wagner. Okay, we have a mover on Councillor Churchill and a second on Councillor McClintock. Are we all in favour? That was unanimous. Thank you very much. We go to the next item in our agenda, which is 4.2 Youth Council appointments, and we retain Kylie. I think we might say goodbye. Or you staying here, Jacqueline, as well? Thank you very much. It's not in my notes, sorry.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Jacqueline now joins me as the Team Leader of Community Partnerships, and thank you, our Saiki City Advisory Committee members. Thank you very much for joining us today. So we're now moving to another of our advisory committees, the 2026 Youth Council. So we were very fortunate the meeting before, to have a deputation from our 2025 Youth Council, highlighting some of the wonderful achievements that group of young leaders have made throughout the year. So it is with great excitement that I can share our expression of interest process for 2026. It was truly overwhelming. We had 39 applicants, including 9 return members. And one of the very exciting things this year was the achievement of regional diversity, which we struggle really hard with to engage people from all across our region. I'd like to pay tribute to the work of our existing President, Doug, who really led charge on trying to really achieve that regional diversity. So our applicants are of very high calibre. We have people from Agnes Water, Miriam Vale, Yarwun, Calliope, Tannum Sands, Boyne Island and Gladstone, which is fantastic. And yes, I do really want to thank the entire Youth Council and the councillors that have been part of it. We're seeking endorsement of 19 members, which I know is more than last year. It's about 3 more than last year. And we do acknowledge that everyone involved in the Youth Council and supporting the Youth Council have been able to manage that size of group this year as well, which is great. We normally do see a little bit of natural attrition during the year as well, so that should also be taken into account. There's no changes proposed to the terms of reference. The terms of reference state a minimum of 5 members. And we're also looking to engage with the other applicants through our neighbourhood centre in a youth connection program, which is similar to, it's exactly the same as what we've done this year with initiatives like Vibe and Stride and all those type of things that we heard about a couple of weeks ago. Jacqueline and I welcome any questions councillors may have. Thank you.
Councillor Davis?
Thank you, Deputy. So I just was worried about the numbers, but you think the 19 is manageable? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think with the support, Jacqueline's support and Rebecca Creedy and our councillors, we have managed the size of the 16 group this year. And we always do see a few people drop out during the year with school commitments and work commitments. So I'm confident we can manage that size.
Thanks, Kylie. I'm happy to move the office recommendation.
Councillor Holzheimer moving or asking a question? Okay, great.
I'm happy to second. I think that following on from Councillor Davis's question is that I was also concerned last year with 16. I know we had lots of discussion saying that's a really big group to manage. The way that it's run in regards to having one meeting here and then one meeting at Phillip Street, and the way that's facilitated seems to work really well. I think the change as well of having two consistent councillors on that helps support that process. We had a meeting before this to really explore what this model looked like, because like you said, there's 30 kids that were youth that were really interested in this, and the work that went from all across the region to get that. So I think the current structure does work. I know that I was concerned, but also, yeah, really happy with the 19 based on what we've seen, and due to the huge amount of commitments of some of these young people as well, we don't actually see 19 at every meeting. So that actually makes a bit of an impact as well. So yeah, thanks.
Very good. Anyone online? Just checking because sometimes I miss the digital signals. Councillor Patrick.
Sorry, I just quickly want to add on from Councillor Holzheimer's comments what a privilege it's been to work collaboratively with our youth council. A couple of meetings ago we did see their report. It is truly outstanding, the work that is being done by our youth, and I do see that we have a responsibility in shaping the lives of our youth, our next generation of leaders, and to give them an insight into what local council is, how it works, and give them an opportunity to work alongside our officers. I'm a real believer of, train them here, keep them here, and those insights I hope will, we're seeing the evidence of what that is. So again, I had some risks, and I've got it written down here about the resourcing and the risks of having that number, but as Melissa or Councillor Holzheimer has said, there has been no meeting where probably there's been full attendance because of those various reasons. So I'm comfortable with moving forward with that model.
Very good. Councillor McClintock.
Yeah, just a quick one. I know we'd had brief discussions started last year about potentially moving into a two-part model. I know there's some within that youth council group that were really interested into the governance side of things and more of that structured, and others that were really just looking for the community engagement side of it. Did we ever eventuate that? Does that look like something now? Are we still exploring that? Where are we up to with that?
We've looked at lots of different opportunities. I think one of the key challenges with moving to a two-part model is the resourcing. Yeah. So especially considering that the Youth Council meets fortnightly, it's one of our more time-consuming advisory groups. Mm-hmm. So having only one kind of council officer working to support that youth council, at this stage we didn't feel it would be feasible for that person to run two groups. But the compromise that we came to was that the neighbourhood centre coordinator is running a youth group, and so some of the applicants who weren't successful in making it onto the youth council have been given the opportunity to join this neighbourhood centre group, which has a different feeling to it. They have their own activities that they can focus on, and really focusing on the neighbourhood centre's goals of social isolation and mental health, so they get a different feel to the youth council. So that's where we've landed.
That's really brilliant. Didn't realise they were two separate almost groups working. And so the one that's operating out of the neighbourhood centre, how can young people get involved with that? Is that still an application process? Do you just turn up? What does that look like?
That's a great question. So they can contact the neighbourhood centre and speak to the neighbourhood centre coordinator. Because there's no terms of reference, there was no official expression of interest process, so they can reach out anytime if that's something they're passionate about.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Very good. So we have a mover on Councillor Davis and a second on Councillor Holzheimer. All in favour? Well done. Thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you, councillors. Thanks, Jo.
We now move to G4.3, lease for part of Lot 5 on RPs 601549 and Lot 32 on PL 646 between Council and Claver Limited, trading as Urala Sports Club, and we welcome Mark Francis, General Manager, Assets and Environment, and Carol Greenway. Mark, yes. If you want to introduce yourself, that'd be wonderful, Carol.
Carol's our land management officer within the Assets and Environment team, and is responsible for a number of our land management matters across the region, this being one of them. Good morning, councillors. This is a report to ask you to resolve that an exemption applies under the regulations to dispose of the parts of Lot 5 and parts of Lot 32 to Clava Limited, trading as Urala Sports Club for their Bailey Golf Course development. Council has previously resolved that the exemption applies to the disposal by lease to the land, and the Clava have a lease over that land. We originally intended to include in the lease an option to purchase at market value on the commencement of the development. Council chose to seek an alternative path where they asked us to, and I quote, continue to negotiate the purchase of the lease area with Clava Limited and bring a further report to Council to discuss the options. Carol and I working that with Clava. We've reached the conclusion that the option to purchase at market value is the only reasonable way forward. Clava have stated that that would be their negotiating point. We believe there's value for the community in disposal at market value on commencement of the development, and we're asking you to resolve that the same exemption applies to the disposal by sale should the option be exercised. Council's Council is still able to negotiate other alternatives, including potential land swaps, if that was something that Clava were interested in at the time. The option to buy is a standard clause within leases of this type and was the original intent negotiated with Clava and Council in 2024. Happy to take any questions.
Very good. Councillor Davis, and I'll go to you, Councillor Wagner, after. Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you for that report. My question is, if there was a contract to sale down the track after the valuation, will that be an unconditional contract or would it be subject to finance? Do you know? Can you answer that for me at the moment?
I would have to take that on notice.
Could you? Yeah. That'd be great. Thank you.
Councillor Wagner.
Yes, good morning everyone, and thanks Mark for the report. Just curious, while we resolved that section 236 1B2 for the lease, the purchase, there's a couple of questions I have. We're going to go to sale on it. One, I personally would be interested in land swap. I think it needs to be market value, and I think that we don't give Clava the option to determine what that value is. If they want to put an offer in, fair enough, but I think that we do need to consider getting a joint or a market value at that time. Also, I'm just wondering too, so if we're going to go down this path and what the Act says is that there's a couple of questions. Is there another person who adjoins who owns the other adjoining land that wishes to acquire the land? Have we done our due diligence and asked if any other neighbours? Now, I'm not sure what the definition of neighbours are, but that parcel of land, or the lands in there, if you look at our growth corridor, it's from Gladstone to Calliope, if you look at all our documented records, and that amount of land could house a lot of houses there. So I just want to make sure, one, there's no neighbours there that may have had an interest that we may have looked or overlooked, perhaps. Two, I'm not convinced when I read the Act that we actually can do this. I just want to have that conversation if I can.
Thank you, Councillor. To answer your first question, so it is proposed, and within clause 13 within the lease, it's proposed that the option to purchase, the price of the option to purchase will be determined by valuation at prevailing market rate, determined by a jointly appointed registered valuer at the time. So we're not allowing CLAVA to do it. It's a jointly appointed registered valuer who will give us their independent opinion of the cost or the value of the land at the time the option is exercised. On your other points, sorry.
I just interrupt you there. On it says here that they can provide a valuation report, and then if we don't agree, then we'd go to seeking another valuation on that. So is that not the case?
So we'll be required to make sure that there's value to the community in it. So if they were to come in with a value which we thought was below, then we're able to ensure that the value is correct.
And how do we, without actually a valuation report, determine that that is below or not? Like, we're not experts in valuation. But that's what I'm saying. Why wouldn't we just go straight out to a valuation report that we...
So again, the grant of the option, section 1, the landlord grants an option to the tenant to purchase the lease area, the option, and 2, subject to clause 13A3, the option can be exercised by delivering to the landlord a written notice to the landlord of its exercise of the option and a valuation report prepared by a registered valuer documenting the market value of the lease area. So that would be an independent valuer. They have their own responsibilities to provide that. It's not CLAVA doing that. We would seek a registered valuer. If we dispute that, then we're able to jointly appoint another registered valuer to provide another a value for the land.
No worries. Now then, okay, so the second part would be about the clause in which we believe we can do this. Have we asked any neighbours, any other neighbours, whether or not they may have an interest in it?
We are mostly the neighbouring landholder to these portions of land. So these are portions of land which form a part of lot, and CLAVA own the southern things. They're the only neighbouring landowner, which is there. The exemption allows us to not seek those other. So notwithstanding that there are no other neighbouring landowners who would be interested in developing this, the exemption specifically allows us to undertake this process without seeking other landowners' interest in the property.
So you're saying that CLAVA is the only neighbour for all these allotments?
So the lots are part of a larger lots, so they're portions of a lot, and within the other parts of the lot, council owns those, so they become essentially a neighbouring landowner. The southern borders of the lots are owned by CLAVA.
All right, so sorry, so there are no neighbours to this lot. Once all together, there are no other neighbours, and there's no neighbours currently for these
the only common boundary is with CLAVA and council.
With CLAVA and who, sorry?
Council, ourselves.
And council. Okay, so we didn't have to go and ask anyone else whether or not they may have been interested.
No, but the exemption which we're asking you to resolve means we do not need to seek other people or go to open tender. This is the nature of that. However, that's not the section which we are asking you to resolve. The original lease was resolved on the basis that Clava and Urala are a community organisation, and section 2361B2 is the community organisation exemption, and for consistency we're asking you to resolve the disposal by sale is using the same exemption.
So can I just ask you, so I was just a bit curious with even our lease, like upon looking at this, even though there was an agreement to the lease, is Clava actually a community organisation?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. We're sure that that is a community organisation. I know it does some great things for the community, but is it actually a community organisation?
Yes, we're comfortable that the organisation allows us to use the exemption which we're recommending and which has previously been resolved.
And so I suppose the last part of that is it is our growth corridor. It is a substantial holding. There's houses not far across the road. It's a logical progression of our expansion of Gladstone. And while I absolutely support what Clava is doing here, and I think it's fantastic, I still think for ratepayers we need to make sure that we're comfortable that we potentially are going to be selling land that could be used as a natural growth corridor for our community.
The primary or the original purpose of this land was for conservation and sits within the Baili Wetlands Conservation Area. There would be no large-scale urban development of these lots. The negotiations which we undertook originally within the boardroom as well, because officers were not originally supportive of the disposal on the basis of the conservation value of the area. The reassurances that Clava and Urala have provided in terms of their stewardship and their environmental stewardship of the areas will continue to deliver the value which the community seeks to get from that from that land, which is its value to the conservation. So it's not an urban growth. These lots are not identified as urban growth.
No worries. Sorry, one more question. I'm sorry to take up so much time. In the conditions precedent, 8.3, how do we determine what substantially commencing development of a golf course is? Because it says substantially commencing. It doesn't say substantially developing a golf course. It says commencing, which could be the planning stage.
It wouldn't
Okay.
It wouldn't be the planning of it. It would be the exercise the operational works permit, which is the intention to undertake the actual work to develop the golf course. So development approvals are obviously underway for the master planning. There'll be subsequent development approvals. None of those identify as being commencing the development. Operational works is generally identified as a point where the work begins.
Okay, I get that, but I think for me, I'd prefer to see that it's actually substantially developed rather than the planning stages, because once these approvals are in, there's really no obligation for them to do it, in which case we've sold land that we may have used for other purposes.
That is a fair point. I would also make the point, though, that once the approvals are gained, the value of the land increases, irrespective of whether it's been developed or not. So the value delivered to the community really is realised at the point of the approvals being placed on it.
Yeah, but it's not just about the money, it's about what other repurposing of that land we can, or, what we can do with that land. I do believe that our growth is still out in that area. So I'm concerned with that comment. I'm not supportive of that particular one. I think that one needs to be looked at.
Okay, Councillor Wagner, let's just move on to another question. And we can come back to here. I just want to acknowledge that the officers are working a direction that we gave them, and that direction was to negotiate the purchase of the lease area. So we gave that. Yes, so they bringing us a number of solutions, and they have also been not necessarily directed, but given a general direction that we're supporting the development of this community asset. So we can go back to your questions, but I have 4 more people that want to speak. So can I please go to Councillor Cameron?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, hold on a sec. Sorry, Councillor Wagner.
You just cut me off when this is really, really important.
I'm saying we can come back to you. Can we come back to you after the other councillors speak? Is that okay?
No. I only have one other thing to say, if you don't mind. I appreciate this. I think it is a really important thing. And I'm like, it's not that I'm not supportive. I absolutely.
No, we understand that your questions are very important. We just wanted to maybe move through a couple of other questions to go back. But yeah, you can finish, Councillor.
Yeah, I don't need to.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. To Councillor Davis's question as to whether the contract would be subject to finance, my understanding is that particular clause is basically relative to residential. In commercial contracts, not necessarily normal. That would be my understanding of it. As far as when substantial works would be deemed to be reached, would be when the application for operational works is approved. To me, that's when that would be substantially progressed to the point where they could exercise their right to purchase. Just going back to the beginning of it, the reason for the acquisition of this land and why it's so important is that for this golf course to be an international recognised tournament golf course, it needs to be 72 par, 18 holes, and it has to have a certain length of course. And without this piece of land, they would not be able to achieve that. So to attract international tournaments, they do require it. That's what the reason for that is. And look, we've been working on this for some time. The officers have brought back all the information that I believe we need to make a decision today. And on that basis, I would like to move the officers' recommendation today. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that, Councillor Churchill? But we'll continue with the do you have any other questions, Councillor Cameron? Councillor Karen Davis?
Thank you, Deputy. Councillor Cameron, lots of commercial contracts are subject to finance. I've been doing, contracts for quite a long time over my working career. My issue with the contract, I suppose my question is, the deposit is zero. So any contract can be, unfortunately, not go through. So I would just like to see that deposit have some sort of substantial amount on there. So if they did, unfortunately couldn't complete the contract, that, all the work, that there's something that comes back from that, I suppose, is what I'm saying. Not all contracts aren't subject to finance.
Would it not be the case, Councillor, if the contract didn't proceed, the land would revert to ourselves because there's a term on the lease as well? So in terms of the value, the community is protected in that element.
Yeah, I understand that, but there's a lot of work that it's gone into it too. And for us to take the risk to do the contract, I think that, there should be some type of substantial deposit put in there, but, that's up to your recommendation. I'll take that. The other thing you mentioned about the environment and it being wetlands in that area, so to me that's a bit of a risk. If they do purchase the land, what have we got in place that they will, not develop that land and continue that it would be that type of, development in keeping the wetlands?
So we went through quite a significant piece of work with Urala when they were undertaking their concept design in terms of, we expressed the value which we have in the land. Councillors may recall there was a Bailey Wetlands and Bushland concept plan adopted in 2002, which kind of manages how that land is going to be. There's great value, environmental and community value in those lands particularly as it operates as a carbon sink as well, given that it absorbs more carbon than it emits. The proposed stewardship and management of the golf course and the eco standards which currently exist within golf course management has given councillors, has given officers enough reassurance that the management of that land will be aligned with the value. So while there is disruption, and obviously there'll be clearing, the damage to the environment and the loss of the carbon sink is within council's risk tolerance for its environmental stewardship of the land. But it's not going to be urbanly developed. It's not we know we've got an outline master plan development approval in just now, so we are aware of what that is intended for those lots. And obviously part of the development approval process is considering the environmental impact and the mitigations there.
Okay, so that will come back through our planning department, obviously, and that would be any conditions there environmentally on that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. I have Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. We've come a long way to actually land here today, and they're all good questions that are being posed, which have been posed previously as well, as all part of the dialogue and the discussion and the various reports that have found its way to council. But today is a decision that we've got to make to give the proponents a strong or a solid position to give them that level of certainty so that they can proceed. And I'm sure you understand that. So, but to have arrived at this point in the process today is the next step. And in dot point 2, we're authorising the CEO, in her astute wisdom, with her executive leadership team, to ensure the protective measures for the Gladstone Regional Council. So we would hope that there would be sufficient conditions, noting what's being said today. The other part of it is that in giving Clava that solid position of certainty to go forward at the same time, and I understand where Councillor Wagner's coming from about the growth corridor, and that's been explained, but this particular project will be of significant nature for not only the golfing fraternity, but for our destination. So the hope and be it the plan or the proposed aspirations that should be delivered from this will be growth in the city and growth throughout the region, and also to strengthen the tourism component as well. So, and if that does trigger that growth in other areas, because I don't believe that that's part of the growth corridor for residential development or even business or light industrial. It may be further out as such, so that's just my opinion. But anyway, as far as I'm concerned, for them to be able to deliver a major attraction, not only just a championship golf course, it also opens up the parcel of land down there at Kincora. And we've discussed that. What will happen to that, that's still to be determined. It's not a decision that's before this council today. But I am very, very strongly supportive of seconding the recommendation of Councillor Cameron so that we can step forward to the next step in the process, and hopefully the CEO at some stage will bring back some level of good news to this council and our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, Mark, you can definitely answer.
Thank you, Deputy.
Sorry, can I jump in, Deputy Mayor? Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to go to you after. Yep. That's
yeah,
good.
no, sorry, I have to jump in because of what Councillor Churchill just said. This has nothing to do with the land at Sun Valley, but now that it's been mentioned, I can see the connection. So I'll go back to my previous declaration of a conflict of interest in this issue.
Yeah, thank you.
In terms of the block of land in Sun Valley, not the block of land at Bailey, but the two are being connected. And what my declaration is that I would can still remain in the room, comment, but not vote. But I actually have the Ministerial Council to attend now anyway, so I will step out of the meeting now and leave you with it. But I just wanted to declare that conflict of interest, and I wouldn't be voting if I'd stayed in the room, but I won't be voting because I'm actually leaving the meeting now. So thank you all.
Is
and
there
as I
anything
said
you want to
before, Merry
add to
Christmas.
the discussion before you go? No? Okay.
Yes, yes, Bailey itself, the reason we're considering this is because is a golf course adding to the green nature park area? It will never ever be urban development. It either gets left as green space or it's extended green space, which is the real question here is, does a golf course impact the intended use of that land, which is for green space? And because the argument is, well, they work complementary together. So technically, that's it. In terms of a growth corridor, I hear what Councillor Wagner is saying, but it's more on the other side of the road and more on the other side of Bailey. That section there would never, ever be urban development because it was meant to be and is meant to be for a green space for wildlife. And then the only argument really is the golf course complementary to that, which allows us to go through this process, or does it is it in opposition to that, in which case you wouldn't do it? The only question really is, does a golf course take away from the green space that you're protecting, or does it not take away from it? In terms of future urban development, there's never going to be any in that space. That's not what Bailey is for. It's more an environmental reserve. But that's my point. But I hear what you're saying, because I've always believed the growth corridor is between Gladstone and Calliope. I've said that many times. Some of the areas we've approved as residential, rural residential, should have been, in my opinion, smaller lots. But anyway, that's all done now. I'll hand back to you, Deputy,
Thank
and I'll go back to the Ministerial Council. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Leanne Patrick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My question probably is following on from Councillor Michelle Wagner's. Michelle Wagner. In relation to the substantial commencement, it's very vague, it's very subjective. Councillor Cameron gave what his thoughts of what that would be. Can you tell me, as the experts, what that means?
Well, we agree with Councillor Cameron that it would be the approval of the operational works permit. That's the signal that the development is going ahead. There's significant investment in that, and we're happy to amend the clause to include that. Rather than say substantially commenced, we can make it clear that the operational
That would be
works
great.
permit has been
Yes,
granted.
I would really like that amended. Yeah, thanks.
And if I can, to Councillor Davis's point, obviously the contract of sale is not yet drafted, is itself subject to negotiation at the time the option is exercised as well. So obviously we're able to Councillor Churchill's point, to make sure that we receive the best value during that contract negotiation as well.
Thank you. Look, I'm not against the project. I think the project's great, but it's just, those few questions I had, and coming from that background with contracts, it just, I always like to see a deposit, and that's just my opinion. Thanks.
Can I just, add to, I'm not against it either, but I think it's important that we are respecting residents within our region and how they entrust us to make these types of decisions. So this is just very important that we get the wording correctly, that we are satisfied that we can go forward with this.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Do you want to answer that? Or
No,
I
those
think
were the points I wanted to make,
I'll go to Councillor Holzheimer, and then I'll go back to you, Councillor Wagner. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts. There's been so much conversation. I feel like I think the decision we're here to make today really comes from that long line of discussions we've had before when we endorsed the master plan for Clava Limited for that space, when we've had discussions about the LGIP and some of the changes that will happen in regards to development and that being outworked. And I often think about a comment that Councillor Churchill said, apologies, when we were first elected, that sometimes the best option is for council to actually move out of the way and community to do what community does best. And I think that, for me, from what I've seen so far from the master plan, us actually stepping aside and providing them with that space to acknowledge and to support those wetlands. And I believe from their master plan that there was some environmental research component that actually was a part of that, if I'm going back as well. So they'll probably invest in a completely different way than we ever would in regards to that space, to really honour and work in preserving that space. The main question I have, because I'm very supportive of this recommendation, is that how long do these negotiations usually take in a time frame, and what are the next steps after we make a decision here today if this is actually adopted, this recommendation? So what's it look like from this point on?
I'll let Carol give the details, but we're very close to being able to.
Yeah, so where we're at the moment, this lease itself is in its final form. We're quite comfortable on both parties where we're at the moment. The option to purchase has been a bit of a linchpin on the lease. Once we have that, if we endorse and we uphold the request there for the option to purchase, that'll be reinstated into the lease. And then we can then move forward with reviews and execution of that. For the negotiations that you're talking about of the contract in the future, it really does depend. Typically they can be quite quick to bring about if we've got clear directions on both parties. If there's a bit of backward and forward, we will come back to you if needed. But yeah, it's hard to sort of determine at this point in time.
Because this is really just putting a clause in a lease, really, isn't it? That they can purchase in the future if they need to or want to, and if we deem that it's actually suitable for them to do that.
Just to be clear, there's no lease over the land at the moment. This is still council land with approval for the development application to be taken over council land. So it's just really making sure that we've got the right things in place to allow the development to proceed.
Yep, so we've got all our ducks in a row, basically.
Exactly, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holzheimer. Councillor Wagner, I'm sorry I made you feel like I cut you off. I just wanted to give people opportunity, but please go ahead.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. And sorry, this is one where I'm like every other councillor here. I absolutely support this. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I also believe in what Councillor Patrick has outlined, and also Councillor Karen has outlined as well, Davis, that I suppose by supporting this, we just need to make sure that we're still doing the right thing by our residents. Okay, we can't be doing all development at all costs at the expense rate of residents, and making sure that we're doing our due diligence. When you look at the Act, there are some key requirements on it which have been pointed out, but the word substantially commencing to me is very subjective. So I'm happy to support this, providing that our CEO, who I know will do a fantastic job in making sure that the conditions on this in terms of maybe deposit and also that the clarification of what substantially commencing means will be clearly outlined to make sure that if anything goes pear-shaped, and let's face it, things do go pear-shaped in life, that we're not still selling, even if it is market value, land which then may not be maintained for conservation, that land that may end up getting sold for other things down the track. So I know it will still be restricted in terms of what other people could do with that land because of what's it assessed at. But we can't underestimate, we need to do our due diligence, and I think our staff have done a fantastic job. There's only those 2 points there in terms of what Karen has outlined, Councillor Karen has outlined it, and Councillor and myself as well, and Councillor Leanne as well. And otherwise, I'm happy to support it. I can see, and I appreciate what everyone has said, particularly the background to that, and that it is that wetlands area. But I still don't think that when we're making these decisions that we shouldn't be making sure that all the ducks are lined up. So thank you for that, and I do appreciate you intervening. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
What are you going to say?
Mark?
That's
I
fine.
think Mark might want to say something.
Yeah, just to clarify, so we will include in the option to purchase that operational works permit will have been approved, and that will replace the substantially commencing development. We will propose a deposit within the contract to sale.
Mm-hmm. Do we need to include that in the recommendation, or that will be
to Shelley?
No, it's not needed in the resolution, as there's the delegation to the CEO to outwork that.
Well, that's pretty. I'm sure Lisa has her every word of it. So.
Direction's very clear. I do have to point out that there is a slight error within the recommendation, and Shelley has the correct recommendation. Just 2 figures fell off the end of Lot 5 and RP 601549. So the correct resolution is on the screen, correcting that, just to make sure that we not give away. We do the option to purchase on the right piece of land.
Okay, I'll just give everyone, can you make it a little bit bigger? And just give everyone an extra minute to read it so everyone's comfortable. And we need to make sure that Councillor Cameron and Councillor Churchill are satisfied with that.
Yep.
And, well, thank you, everyone, for all your different points of view and input into this. So I think the officers and Lisa have also more information and understand your wishes too. So I'll put that to a vote. So all in favour of the resolution on the board? Anyone against? No, that's been carried unanimously. And thank you very much. We'll move. Thank you, Mark. And yeah, I will probably do one more, and then we go to a morning tea, if that's okay. We'll do G.5 monthly financial statements for the period ending 30th of sale of land. Okay, I'll skip one. There you go. I'm so sorry. Sale of land, 4.4, Acting General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk, Tanya and Sian, thank you very much. Welcome.
Good morning, councillors. This morning I have with me Sian Maddock, Acting Manager of Revenue Services, to present this report which seeks council's approval to progress with the sale of a number of properties due to unpaid rates. Where rates and charges for a property have remained outstanding for a respective period of 3 years for residential properties or 1 year for vacant or commercial properties, council can take action to recover the unpaid rates and charges by selling the land. The sale of land for unpaid rates and charges is a legislative process that has commenced with a council resolution, such as the officer's recommendation today. Following council's resolution, appropriate notices will be issued to landowners and relevant parties. At the time the agenda was published, there were 27 properties with outstanding rates and charges that meet the relevant threshold. It's council's preference to recover the unpaid rates and charges prior to the properties proceeding to auction. However, that isn't always possible. Councillors, since the report was published, assessments 12898, 1946 and 25943 have made payments and are no longer eligible for sale. So I'd ask that the resolution reflect this. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Councillor Davis?
Thank you for the report, Tanya. I'm happy to move the recommendation. I know that we go through the correct process and a lot of these do end up being paid before they're actually having to be sold off. So I thank you for all the work that that department does, and yeah, happy to move.
Councillor Patrick will be seconding this motion. Any other questions or comments? So we'll go straight to the vote. So all in favour? Anyone against? Thank you very much. That it's been carried, and I'll move that we go take a break for morning tea, and we come back in about 20 minutes. Yep, thank you. Welcome back. Thank you, Josh, always behind there, making sure we get live everywhere. Now we do move on to 4.5, monthly financial statements for the period ending 30th of November 2025. Thank you very much, Tanya.
Thank you,
Jess.
councillors. Our financial controller, Jess Rosso, joins me to present the monthly financial statements for November. This month's financials tell a very similar story to last month's. 93% of rates have been collected, which is a slight increase on last month and an improvement on the same period last year. Of the 14.98 million of unpaid rates, 18% is commercial and industrial and 82% are residential assessments. 6.38 million of the outstanding rates are currently subject to a payment plan, so we continue to receive revenue from that. Dividends, income tax equivalents, grants and subsidies are all shown as below budget. This isn't of concern at this stage, as this revenue is typically receipted in the last quarter of the financial year. The areas of overtime, legal expenses and employee entitlements continue to be areas of note. This has also been a focus for the executive leadership team and senior leadership team. With respect to legal costs, we have a briefing coming to Council in January to help better understand these costs. The increase in spend this month is directly attributable to costs from our recent court cases that have come to an end, primarily planning matters. Employee entitlements continue to be impacted by our low vacancy rate, which is both a blessing and a burden. Each of these expense areas have been areas of focus during our forecast. Council's strong cash balance of 221.9 million with 58 million invested in term deposits. From a capital perspective, we've invested 33.9 million on capital projects. Capital revenue is lagging a little, with grant income traditionally being received toward the end of the financial year. Last month I mentioned to councillors, I just lost my place. Last month I mentioned to councillors that we were anticipating presenting council with an updated forecast position. We've taken the opportunity to undertake some additional collaboration with council's senior leadership team to refine the forecast, and it'll now be presented to council as part of December's financial statements in January's general meeting. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Jess, do you want to add anything?
I don't think so. I think Tanya's given a really succinct summary of that. I would just echo what she said there about the lag in revenue compared to budget is most definitely a timing concern. We've got those large revenue sources that we receive generally in the last quarter of the year. Expenses, while there is a little bit of movement in between the different categories, are also largely on track compared to where budget is at the moment.
Sounds great. Any questions, comments? Councillor McClintock? I recognise your noises.
Yeah. Just seeing who was going to jump in. Look, I just had a couple of points of clarification. Some of the stuff you've covered in general in the commentary, so I appreciate there's a lot in that, and a lot of it, when I was like, it got explained itself away. So probably the first one would be just a little bit of a query on the overtime stuff that we've discussed a number of times, and not so much about why it's happening, but I kind of remember a conversation last year happening around the budgeted amount being updated to reflect better what was actually required within the business unit, particularly in that the workshops and roads section. Did that happen, and now we're still like sitting really high in that estimation, or are we still awaiting that to be implemented? I'm just wondering why, if we have updated that to include more than the previous year, how that's tracking and we're still ahead. Why are we still so high in there was my first question.
Councillor McClintock, I will probably say that it's quite a complex situation with the overtime. There's a number of triggers, there's a number of things like that we're really working hard to understand. And yes, we certainly did take into effect that in our new, our current budget, but we're trying to get to the bottom of it, and I hope that we'll have some more commentary for you with our forecast.
That'd be great. And I'm not concerned whether doing the wrong thing. It's not really that where that comment comes from, but more so around, are there things we need to enable or empower or strategically do that makes it better for this unit to actually function? Have we made some decisions elsewhere, is my concern, that they've picked up the slack or the pressure in that process? So happy for that to come back when that happens there, but I just really do want to make sure that we're not just continually pushing the burden onto this categories of our team and making things harder because we've made it easier somewhere else. Or if we have made it easier somewhere else and it's harder there, just accurately reflecting that, I guess, so that they don't feel like they're constantly the bad guys in this process. The other one that I had was around the external plant hire, an extra $1 million sitting in that. Is that an ongoing thing? Is that something that we need to discuss or could discuss at budget around whether there's opportunities there to have better, not outsource everything and to have more of those tools on hand? Are there any departments, I guess, and this is again probably to come back, around any identified areas within our business units that are consistently hiring those things, or those hires are getting more and more expensive? Is it time to readdress whether we own some of that plant equipment, understanding that then affects depreciation and all those sorts of things with our own assets? But that number probably flagged a little bit of a concern there. May have been just a one-off. Maybe you do know the background to that.
I can't give you the exact specifics, but similar to overtime, there's a number of factors that influence the plant hire, and sometimes on the face of it, it can look like it'd be great to own more machines, but as you've highlighted, there are implications of that as well. So we'll definitely give that consideration as part of the budgeting process, and it's something else that we've considered and talked to the SLT about during our forecast. Yeah, beautiful. And the last one was just in which section am I in? Capital expenditure. The two lines that kind of I just wasn't quite sure about why they were the way they were was in the property assets and strategic projects. The budget line and the forecast line, both of them for varying reasons, were different. So in the property assets, we now are not forecast to spend anything in that. And the strategic projects, we had forecast to spend another $1 million in strategic projects. I was just curious what was happening around those two lines. Hand over to Mark for that one.
Please.
Thank you. So the portfolio is in a state of flux generally. While we forecast our position at the start of the year, there's various, to coin a phrase, various factors and triggers that change what we may expect to deliver. So the increase in strategic projects is increased activity in Harbour Arbour, which has been brought forward, and we're able to do more within that. I don't know the specifics for the property project, but that would just mean that something we thought was going to happen will now not happen within this financial year. And through a risk-based approach, we've deprioritised that, and that allows us to balance the portfolio.
Beautiful. No, that's all right. Just making sure that there's $1 million in there. It's not nothing, and making sure that we're aware of where that's moving and the decisions that we have to make and how that affects that. So thank you. Appreciate that. That was probably my main concerns. All the other red squiggles I've got on here I can handle.
Thank you, Councillor McClintock. Councillor Davis?
Thank you, Deputy. I think Councillor McClintock's covered most of my questions, but those reports you mentioned, Tanya, will they be back in time so we can have those in consideration for next year's budget?
Yeah, we'll have a range of information available to you for budget consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor McClintock, seconded by Councillor Holzheimer. Are we all in favour? Councillor Wagner, thank you. That's been carried. Thank you, Tanya and Jess. We'll move to the last of our officers' reports, G4.6. Animal Inspection Program for next year, 2026. And we have Acting General Manager, Customer Experience, Mark Bailey. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I've actually made it to the chair this year, so... So this report seeks council approval to implement an approved systematic inspection program under the Animal Management Act, Cats and Dogs. The program will run from the 1st of January to the 31st of July 2026 and focuses on ensuring compliance with registration requirements and conditions for regulated dogs. The objectives are twofold: to conduct house-to-house inspections of dogs previously registered but not renewed for 25-26, and to inspect currently declared regulated dogs, dangerous dogs, menacing or restricted, to confirm they are still being kept in line with their conditions as set out. The program continues Council's annual inspection approach, but with the added emphasis on declared dogs. It will be supported by a comprehensive communication plan, including renewal notices, social media and public notices, reminding owners of their responsibilities. Authorised officers will be empowered under the Act to enter properties as required, with notice of the program published in advance. The initiative meets Council's statutory obligations, supports community safety and ensures accurate registration records, and helping reunite lost animals with owners and strengthening animal management overall. The recommendation is that Council adopt a program for February to July 2026 period. Any questions?
We have a couple. Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. I think the Acting General Manager clarified it in his final statement, because I had it jotted down here when you started. You indicated, and our enforcement officers do a marvellous job, and we thank them immensely for what they do in applying also not only the compliance requirements but showing a bit of common sense. Just in your opening address, you said it would start on the 1st of January, and I was genuinely concerned. I was genuinely concerned that you'd be going out on New Year's Day when everybody would be celebrating coming into 2026, but you clarified it at the end that it commences in February, so I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holzheimer.
I think Councillor Churchill stole my thunder. I think this is really important work that you do, and I would like to move the officer's recommendation.
Do I have a second at Councillor Churchill? Councillor Wagner, any questions, comments? No? Anyone else? Okay, so we have a mover in Councillor Holzheimer and a second in Councillor Glenn Churchill. Are we all in favour? Thank you very much, Mark. That's been carried and ready to be implemented next year. Okay, so we're going to move on to councillors' reports. Do we have any councillors' reports? And Councillor Patrick?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As we come to the close of this year, I just wanted to say a few words, really. As we come to the end of 2025, I wanted to take a moment to reflect on what has been a truly meaningful and rewarding year for our Gladstone region. As one of your elected councillors, something that I never take for granted, every conversation, every community event, every challenge we've worked through together. It all reminds me just how strong and committed our region really is. This year we've achieved a great deal. We've seen important upgrades to our local roads, footpaths and community spaces, improvements that make daily life safer, easier and more enjoyable for everyone. We've continued to support our local businesses, helping them to grow, adapt and create new opportunities across the region. We've invested in community wellbeing, strengthening the programs, facilities and events that bring people together and make this region a vibrant place to live. And of course, our ongoing commitment to caring for our natural environment remains front and centre. From our coastlines to our parks and green spaces, we've worked hard to ensure the places that make Gladstone remain so special. But above all, what stands out most for me is the spirit of our community. The willingness to show up, to share ideas, to lend a hand and to work together. That's what makes this role for me so very rewarding. Looking ahead, 2026 is shaping up to be a busy and productive year. We have new projects on the horizon, new opportunities to explore, and a shared determination to keep building a region we can all be proud of. I'm genuinely excited for what lies ahead, and I look forward to continuing this work alongside you all. As we head into the festive season, I want to wish you and your families a very joyful, safe, and heartwarming time. This time of year is a reminder of how important connection and community really are. And if you do find yourself needing support over the holiday period, please reach out. Organisations like Lifeline, Beyond Blue, Headspace, and our own local community services are here to help. No one should ever feel they have to face things alone. Thank you for your trust, your engagement, and your ongoing commitment to our region. It's been a privilege to serve you throughout 2025, and I look forward to everything we'll achieve in 2026. Beyond the light, be the light, not the darkness. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Do I have any other councillor reports? Councillor Glenn, yep.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Just a quick one. I had the fortunate pleasure to attend the end-of-year Friends of the Theatre volunteer recognition and also awards for long service. So I think it's just appropriate to again acknowledge the significant contribution that our community volunteers not only contribute to our community but contribute to the Gladstone Regional Council. The Friends of the Theatre, the Art Gallery, the Tondoon Botanic Gardens, the library, and the list goes on. And I think in essence, you know, they're offering their essential labour as volunteers, but it strengthens our community, and also at the same time, it's a cost saving for the delivery of those services. And the reason I say that is because some of the awards were for 20, 25, 30, 40 years, you know, so it's a long period of time for wonderful people who actually give back to the community, to a community that gives to them. So just to acknowledge the significance of what volunteers contribute, not only to our region but to the Gladstone Regional Council, and we thank them, immensely.
Thank
Anyway,
you, Councillor Glenn. Anyone else? I think so. There's no other items, but I wanted to take a moment to also thank everyone that's worked this year. This is our last meeting of the year. Definitely not the last day we're going to be working this year. So there's still, every day we doing something. Water doesn't stop, sewage doesn't stop, roads don't stop, animal management don't stop, right, Mark? And nothing really. So I wanted to thank everyone, especially at the Gladstone Regional Council, for everything that they do. And I wanted to also pause for a moment, and I wanted to touch on what happened in Sydney on Sunday. So obviously that's awful, and our country is still in shock. So the loss of life in this way and violence will definitely change our nation forever. For our Jewish communities, these events also bring back fear, memory, and a sense that something that we hope was behind us, at least in Australia, is still hunting us. I grew up with a strong, proud Jewish father. My grandparents were Jewish migrants from Eastern Europe. From a very early age, I understood and felt the pain they carry. I saw that rejection and the exclusion and the things that feeling did to my father because he was a Jew. And as a child, we kept passports and cash locked away, ready in case we had to leave in a hurry or unexpectedly. And while I did have a good upbringing, my brothers and I grew up thinking about those challenges and feeling that fear, that not knowing what could happen. What we saw on Sunday brings that fear back to many people that experienced it just like I did when I was a child. And I think no child in Australia should ever feel unsafe because of who they are, what they believe in, or the family they belong to. And that's why words matter. And I wanted to talk about that just for a minute. Because violence causes harm, but the language that follows, the blame, the us and them, the things that we say without thinking, causes harm, ongoing harm. So I please ask you to think before you speak. The impact of words is real. They shape whether people feel safe or threatened, included or pushed out. This isn't about flags or about sides. It's about our responsibility. Each of us has a choice. We can add to fear or we can stop spreading it. We need to speak in ways that protect people and in ways that we make people feel included. In the coming weeks and months, I ask everyone to choose their words carefully, because what we say does matter, and what we say can change how people feel. So Gladstone, please have a wonderful Christmas, a safe and loving festive season. Feliz Navidad and Shalom. Thank you. There's no any other urgent councillor reports, urgent business, notices of motions or confidential items, and it's 10:51, and I'd like to close that meeting. Thank you.